Born into chains, the early life of Bilal ibn Rabah. In the heart of the Arabian Peninsula, in the bustling city of Mecca, life was a tapestry of wealth, power, and hierarchy. Among the grand merchants and ruling Quraysh elites, there existed another class, those who were born into servitude. Slavery was a harsh reality of Meccan society, a system in which human beings were reduced to property, their value measured not by character or spirit, but by the wealth of the person who owned them. It was in this world, under the oppressive weight of inequality, that a boy named Bilal ibn Rabah was born. Bilal came into the world with a burden of circumstances he had no control over. His father was an Abyssinian, far from the homeland of his ancestors, and his mother had once been a slave. From birth, he was condemned to the life of a servant, denied freedom, and subjected to the whims of his masters. His skin, dark as the night, marked him in a society that equated color with status and worth. Even as an infant, the harsh realities of Meccan society were waiting to shape him. Life as a slave in Mecca was unforgiving. From an early age, Bilal was expected to toil and obey. His days were filled with endless labor, carrying water, cleaning, and serving his master and his master's household. There was little room for play or learning, no space to dream beyond the walls of servitude. The strikes, insults, and cruel punishments were constant reminders that he was not free, that his life was not his own. Yet, even in these harsh conditions, Bilal's spirit began to show signs of resilience. There was a quiet strength in his eyes, a spark that no cruelty could extinguish. He observed the world around him with sharp intelligence, noticing the injustices and the inequalities that governed the city. He saw the pride of the rich, the fear in the hearts of the weak, and the chains that bound his own body. While others might have surrendered to despair, Bilal's heart held a yearning for something greater, freedom, dignity, and a purpose beyond servitude. Bilal's early years were not only shaped by external hardships, but also by his inner reflections. In the silence of the night, while others slept, he would gaze at the stars above Mecca, wondering if there was a God who saw him, a justice that would one day liberate the oppressed. These moments of quiet contemplation nurtured a resilience that would later define his character. The physical chains of slavery could bind his body, but the spirit within him remained untouchable. Even among the slaves, Bilal stood out. His courage and dignity, though subtle, were evident. He would endure pain without breaking, showing a patience and endurance that others admired. These traits, combined with a natural intelligence and keen sense of observation, would later become the foundation upon which his legendary life was built. For now, though, he was a boy in a world that saw him as nothing more than property. The city of Mecca itself was a place of contrasts. Wealthy merchants enjoyed lavish lifestyles, trading goods from across the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. Temples and idols dominated the spiritual landscape, and the ruling families maintained strict control over the social order. For those born into slavery, life was a daily struggle for survival. Yet, in the midst of this oppression, seeds of change were quietly being sown. A message of justice, equality, and the belief in one God was beginning to reach the ears of those who had the least, among them, Bilal. It was in this environment of cruelty and inequality that the boy Bilal learned the first lessons of resilience. Every insult endured, every stone of injustice, and every act of oppression forged in him a quiet, unyielding strength. He may have been born into chains, but his heart and spirit remained free. And though no one could have predicted at the time, this young slave was destined to rise above the confines of servitude and become a symbol of faith, courage, and liberation that would echo across generations. Bilal ibn Rabah's story had begun in chains, but the chains would never define him. In the shadow of oppression, the first sparks of a legend were quietly igniting, preparing him for a destiny that would transform not only his life but the lives of countless others. The boy who began as a slave would one day become the voice that called the faithful to prayer and the living embodiment of courage, faith, and unwavering dignity. Faith in the face of torture, embracing Islam. The city of Mecca, for all its wealth and grandeur, was a place of harsh contrasts. Amidst the bustling markets and opulent homes of the Quraysh elites, there was a quiet, growing movement that threatened the established order. Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, had begun preaching a message that challenged the foundations of Meccan society, a message that proclaimed equality, justice, and the worship of the one true God. For the slaves, the oppressed, and the marginalized, this message was revolutionary. Bilal ibn Rabah, though still a young slave, heard whispers of this new faith. It spoke directly to the part of him that had always yearned for dignity, freedom, and purpose. The idea that all humans are equal in the eyes of God, regardless of wealth, social status, or skin color, resonated deeply in his heart. In secret, he began to learn more, observing those who had embraced Islam and listening to the teachings that promised justice for the oppressed. The more Bilal learned, the more his heart was drawn to the truth of Islam. Unlike the idols of Mecca, which represented power and hierarchy, Islam offered hope. It taught that courage, compassion, and devotion to God defined a person, not birthright or wealth. And so, quietly, in the shadows of his master's home, Bilal accepted Islam. His heart was filled with a newfound purpose, and for the first time in his life, he felt a sense of spiritual freedom that no physical chain could touch. But in Mecca, faith came at a perilous cost, especially for someone of Bilal's status. Slaves who embraced Islam were seen as rebellious and easily subjected to punishment. Bilal's master, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, was one of the most cruel men in the city, notorious for his hatred of Islam. The moment he discovered that Bilal had accepted the faith, he sought to break him. There would be no mercy for a slave who dared to defy his master's authority. The punishments inflicted upon Bilal were severe and relentless. Umayyah sought to crush not only his body but also his spirit. Bilal was dragged into the desert, the scorching Arabian sun beating down mercilessly upon him. Heavy stones were laid upon his chest, making every breath a struggle. He was beaten and mocked, forced to lie on the burning sands while being ordered to renounce his faith and curse the name of Allah. But Bilal's resolve was unshakable. Even as pain seared through his body, he refused to yield. His voice, though strained, rang out with a single, unwavering declaration: Ahad, Ahad. One God, one God. With every repetition, he reaffirmed his belief, refusing to let tyranny extinguish the light of faith that burned within him. The cruelty of Umayyah, meant to intimidate and destroy, only strengthened Bilal's resolve. This act of defiance had a profound effect. Other slaves and even some bystanders watched in or as Bilal endured torture without bending his will. His courage and steadfastness became a living testament to the power of faith. The simple word Ahad, carried far more weight than any sword or threat, for they spoke of a strength that could not be measured in chains or suffering. Despite his suffering, Bilal's faith transformed him. The pain, rather than weakening him, fortified his spirit and deepened his devotion. He became a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope for others who lived under oppression. His story was proof that true freedom comes from the soul, and that even the lowest in society could rise through courage and unwavering belief in God. Bilal's trials were not just a personal ordeal. They were a turning point in the early Islamic community. His endurance inspired other converts and demonstrated that faith was stronger than any force of oppression. Every blow he received became a lesson in resilience, every insult a reminder that dignity is rooted in inner strength rather than worldly status. In the harsh deserts of Mecca, under the relentless sun and the weight of oppression, a young slave discovered the power that faith could grant. Bilal ibn Rabah, once confined by the chains of slavery, was spiritually liberated. His heart, mind, and soul were now free, even if his body remained bound. The courage he displayed during this period would later define his legacy, marking him as a man whose devotion to God could not be broken by human cruelty. In the silent defiance of a slave boy repeating Ahad, Ahad, the seeds of a legend were being sown, seeds that would one day grow into a voice heard across cities, a symbol of faith and equality, and an enduring inspiration for generations to come. From slavery to freedom, the turning point. For Bilal ibn Rabah, life had been a relentless struggle against oppression, his faith tested by the cruel hands of his master, Umayyah ibn Khalaf. Yet, through the heat of the desert, the weight of stones on his chest, and the sting of endless abuse, Bilal's spirit remained unbroken. His unwavering declaration of Ahad, Ahad, became more than a cry of faith. It was a testament to the power of conviction, a light shining in the darkest corners of Mecca. But even the strongest spirit requires a catalyst to transform suffering into freedom, and for Bilal, that moment came in the form of Abu Bakr, one of the Prophet Muhammad's, PBH, closest companions. Abu Bakr, a wealthy and honorable man, was known for his compassion and his unwavering support for the oppressed. When he learned of Bilal's plight, he was deeply moved. He could not stand idly by while a man, whose courage was unmatched, suffered under the chains of slavery for the simple act of believing in one God. Abu Bakr approached Umayyah and offered to pay for Bilal's freedom, a bold act of defiance against the social norms of Mecca. With the transaction complete, Bilal was finally free, his chains broken, his soul unshackled. Freedom, however, was more than just a removal of physical restraints. For Bilal, it was the beginning of a new life, one filled with purpose and devotion. No longer bound by the cruelty of a master, he dedicated himself entirely to the service of Allah and the teachings of the Prophet. His experience as a slave had not embittered him. Instead, it deepened his empathy, strengthened his resolve, and sharpened his understanding of justice and equality. He had been freed not only from human chains, but also from fear, allowing him to fully embrace the spiritual freedom that had first guided him to Islam. The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, recognized Bilal's courage, faith, and unwavering dedication. He entrusted him with a role that would cement his place in history, the first official muezzin, the one who calls the faithful to prayer. This was no ordinary task. The adhan, the call to prayer, was more than a ritual. It was a declaration of equality, a voice that united the Muslim community, and a symbol of devotion to the one true God. To entrust this responsibility to a former slave was a radical statement in a society obsessed with status and hierarchy. It affirmed Islam's revolutionary message. True honor comes not from wealth or birth, but from character and faith. Bilal's voice soon echoed across the rooftops of Medina, rising above the streets and marketplaces, carrying with it a message of hope and unity. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! God is greatest! Each word resonated with the struggle he had endured, with a night spent under the scorching sun, and with a courage that had refused to break under oppression. His adhan was not just a call to prayer. It was a proclamation that faith transcends social status, that courage can elevate even the lowest in society, and that the human spirit, once freed, can inspire generations. Beyond his role as muezzin, Bilal became an integral companion of the Prophet. He participated in key events and battles, always demonstrating courage and humility. In every action, he exemplified the principles of Islam, justice, equality, and devotion. His life became a living lesson that dignity is earned through character, and freedom is defined not by birthright, but by the steadfastness of one's heart. Bilal's rise from slavery to prominence also had a profound impact on the early Muslim community. He embodied the ideal that anyone, regardless of their past or social position, could attain honor and respect through faith and action. His story inspired slaves, the poor, and the marginalized, showing them that their lives were not determined by their circumstances but by the choices they made and the courage they displayed. The transformation of Bilal's life was complete. The boy who had once lain under the burning sun, crushed by stones, and mocked for his belief, now stood tall as a symbol of spiritual freedom. His voice, once silenced by oppression, now rang out every day across Medina, calling the faithful to worship and reminding all who heard it that faith, courage, and devotion are more powerful than any earthly chains. Bilal ibn Rabah's journey from slave to freedom was not only a personal triumph but a profound statement of the ideals of Islam. It showed that faith could elevate the most oppressed, that courage could overcome cruelty, and that one man's steadfastness could leave a legacy that would echo through the ages. In freeing Bilal, Abu Bakr had not only liberated a human being, he had set the stage for a legend, a man whose voice and example would inspire generations to come. The legend that endures, Bilal's timeless legacy. Bilal ibn Rabah's life had been a journey of extraordinary transformation. From the scorching sands of Mecca, where he endured the cruelest forms of torture, to the rooftops of Medina, where his voice called the faithful to prayer, Bilal had risen from a life of bondage to become a symbol of courage, faith, and equality. Yet, the true measure of his greatness was not only in the trials he endured or the roles he assumed, but in the enduring impact of his character and devotion, a legacy that would transcend time, geography, and culture. Even after the passing of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, Bilal remained steadfast in his devotion. His grief at the loss of the Prophet was profound, and it marked a turning point in his later life. Though he could have continued to lead the adhan in Medina, Bilal chose to step back, his heart still mourning the spiritual presence of the messenger of God. This act of loyalty and reverence highlighted the depth of his faith. His service to Islam was not merely a duty but a lifelong commitment rooted in love, devotion, and principle. Bilal's legacy, however, extended far beyond personal devotion. He became a living testament to the principles he had always embodied: courage under oppression, equality in the eyes of God, and the power of faith to transform lives. His story resonated deeply with Muslims and non-Muslims alike, a narrative that illustrated that true greatness is not inherited but earned through character, perseverance, and unwavering conviction. From the humblest beginnings, a slave boy had risen to become one of the most respected and celebrated figures in Islamic history. One of the most profound aspects of Bilal's legacy was the message of equality he represented. In a society deeply divided by wealth, lineage, and social status, his life shattered the notion that nobility and honor were the preserve of the elite. He had been enslaved because of his skin color and birth, yet through faith, courage, and service, he became a man revered by all. Bilal demonstrated that true honor comes not from one's ancestry or social position, but from devotion to God, courage in adversity, and integrity in one's actions. The call of his adhan, which had once echoed across Medina, became more than a call to prayer. It became a symbol of hope, liberation, and spiritual freedom. Across generations, Muslims have remembered and celebrated Bilal as the first muezzin, a man whose voice called communities together, transcending boundaries of status, race, and past hardships. His life showed that even those born into chains could rise to inspire millions, and that the human spirit, once strengthened by faith, can never be truly subdued. Bilal's courage and devotion also served as a guiding example for oppressed people throughout history. His story reminded the world that resistance against injustice is possible, that dignity can be reclaimed even in the harshest circumstances, and that one person's steadfastness can spark change in countless lives. The narrative of a slave boy defying cruelty to stand for his beliefs resonates universally, crossing the barriers of culture, religion, and time. It is a story that inspires resilience, compassion, and hope in the hearts of the oppressed everywhere. Even today, centuries after his passing, Bilal ibn Rabah remains an enduring symbol of the triumph of faith and perseverance. In Islamic tradition, his life is celebrated not only for his role as a muezzin, but also for the moral and spiritual lessons he embodied. Every utterance of Allahu Akbar in prayer echoes the courage of a young man who refused to forsake his faith under torture, reminding the faithful that true devotion is inseparable from courage and integrity. Bilal's legacy is also a reminder that history often remembers those who rise above injustice to uphold truth. From a slave to a beloved companion of the Prophet, his life journey illustrates the transformative power of resilience and devotion. The boy who had once suffered the harshest punishments for his belief had become a legend whose story inspires millions to stand firm in their convictions and to act with courage in the face of oppression. In the end, Bilal ibn Rabah's life is a timeless lesson. It teaches that human dignity cannot be measured by wealth, status, or color. It demonstrates that faith, courage, and devotion can transform even the humblest individual into a figure of lasting influence. His story echoes across the ages, a beacon of hope and inspiration, reminding the world that true freedom is rooted in the heart and that legends are forged not by birth but by the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. Bilal's voice, once silenced by chains, now speaks to humanity across time, a symbol of liberation, faith, and the enduring power of courage. From the deserts of Mecca to the hearts of millions, Bilal ibn Rabah remains not just a historical figure, but a timeless legend.